What's going on, YouTube? This is your Melanated Warrior, Haywood Haynes, and this is another installment of Facts Over Feelings. Leave your feelings at the door so we can get to the facts. This is part 4. Let's get right into it because we got a lot of information to cover, as always. One of the things that I want to do, too, I wanted to kind of highlight before we touch back off into the Greeks because that's where we left off at. But I wanted to let you know, remember we was talking about, those groups and what they have in common and how these individuals have wrote themselves into the King's List. And that King's List was the metuneta. And then so since we understand that the real science was these alchemical charts, we understand that what they gave us to in written form was something far removed from our actual science, i.e. our actual religion. And so what we want to get people to understand too is when we take a look at silicon, what did we say? We said that when silicon when silica forms with oxygen or binds with oxygen, it forms quartz, or silicon dioxide. And what's important for your understanding too as well is when silica bonds or crystallizes with oxygen and forms these rings become something called cyclosilicates. Okay, and cyclosilicates make gems like amethyst, and I'm gonna get to this too, is what like amethyst and emerald. Okay, those are emerald. Those are gems that are made by cyclosilicates, right? And we talked about how our gem is diamond. All right, and so that is indicative, or that represents their nature. Remember, because this is just what they call it. These are symbols. They represent energy. All right, and according to them, how their energy looks, as they analyze it, will amaze you. I'm gonna tell you, that's why I told you that they're getting their energy in order to come here from these charts, or from this alchemical chart, right? And that's what you have to understand. They know what our DNA looks like, under crystallography. And we also want to mention, like we said, we want to add that the United Nations had considered crystallography in 2014 to be the International Year of Crystallography. So that's how serious they take that experimental discipline. All right, so we're going to show you, like I said, this is going to knock the nail out, knock the ball out the park before we go right off into the Greeks and dissecting that. But I wanted to show you a picture of what they say their energy looks like. And it's going to shock you. And this comes right off of the periodic table of elements. Because remember, when silica and oxygen bond and create a crystal, the silica atom is right in the middle and is surrounded by 4 oxygen atoms, like a square. And then as that energy meets and bonds with silica, it goes up and makes these polygonal faces. And these polygonal faces are in the form of tetrahedral formations. And what that just simply means is that when you take a square, and because poly means many, gono means faces. Okay, that's all that means. It's just Greek stuff, man. That's all it is. And so these tetrahedral formations are pyramids. So from a square, when you look at a square, where the lines connect are called vertices. Okay, each corner is called a vertex. Vertices, right? These vertices, these corners. And then from these corners, you got lines that you draw up. When you draw up all these lines at the corners of the square, you're going to have pyramids. And those pyramids are going to have 4 faces. Okay, that's where the number 44 comes from. So all that stuff that Jay-Z and them been talking about, we busting open the science. They ain't finna be so special to y'all no more. All right, throwing up the pyramid and all that, they ain't so special to y'all no more. And so this is what comes out of it, right? And when you got 3 or more of those pyramids in a ring, then you have what's called a cyclosilicate. Now, this is where they claim that their energy comes from, and I'm going to show you exactly what their energy looks like as they say that it is. This symbol is going to look very familiar to you, and this is going to put the nail in the coffin in terms of I'm telling you this is where they get their energy from. Recognize this symbol? That's a cyclosilicate. All right. I'm kicking you niggas' ass is all I'm doing. That's all I like doing. You see, so now we're going back to the Greeks, and we wanted to substantiate that the Greeks are the Jews. And so how you get a closer picture of the so-called Jews, the so-called Jews also call themselves Germans. Now, we're going to, isolate a couple problems with that. But what we're showing you is that their culture, they made sure that they put their culture in Egypt because that's exactly what they intended to do, was to give you, that's why they translated those Bibles and constantly was going to war with you in order for you to, because remember, the Bible was very instrumental in English being learned as the lingua franca, if you will. will. You see, so you have to understand that the Bible was instrumental in people learning the English language. And what is the English language? The English language is a branch of the Germanic tribes. The Germanic languages, or the Germanic branch of the Indo-European tongue, is what? English, Dutch, and German. The English are a part of a German tribe. They're Germans. Stop looking at these Americans. These Americans are Germans. You see what I'm saying? Like linguists will tell you, languages are genetically related. Okay? So what you have to understand is that these so-called Greeks had transformed it, because remember, there is no real, the difference between the Romans and the Greeks were the fact that they felt like their energy came from a different source, but they still praised the same God. They had a wolf or dog energy, and in turn, the Greeks had a vampire type of energy, right? And how do we know that? Because we've already established that, once there's the fall of Rome, Rome falls by German barbarians or Germanic tribes called the Visigoths. Okay, and now these German tribes have two empires, right? They're called Austria and Prussia. Okay, the Austrian Empire is ruled by the Habsburg dynasty. Okay, and the Prussia dynasty was ruled by the Hohenzollerns. Okay, the Hohenzollerns is the one who ruled, that family ruled, Prussia. Prussia eventually becomes Germany. All right, and Prussia organizes the German states, but in 1866, but they leave. Because Austria and Prussia was united all up until 1866. Then in 1871, when Prussia united the rest of the German states, they left Austria out of it. But Austria and Germany Austria and Prussia spoke the same type of German. But Austria called their German Austrian German, but they were mutually intelligible. How do we know that? Because we know when Hitler took power, okay, when Hitler took power in Germany, Hitler was Austrian. And then that's why Hitler annexed Austria when he took power. Okay, that's what you need to know. And so you have to understand too as well that we're looking at languages. The Germanic tribes are what? They come from the Indo-European branch. Yet you know that what? The Rothschild call themselves German Jews. So there's a conflict because we know that the Jews, what? Their language is Semitic. Because you don't study languages, this shit go over your head. How can you be in two families? Because they're saying that what? They're from the line of Pharaoh. Remember, the Greeks wrote themselves in the Pharaoh's list. Remember that? And the Greeks were with the Romans. It was the Greco-Roman Empire. Remember, Constantine's mother was Greek. So these werewolves and vampires, and how do we know that they're vampires? Because remember, Prince Charles has already told you, can look this up. Prince Charles has already said that he was related to Dracula, the so-called Dracula, and was proud of his heritage and could trace it back to Transylvania. Again, werewolves and vampires. And we see the movies, you thought Twilight, look, they don't let nothing get popular for no reason at all. You thought Twilight and Underworld was just movies? Dig this. You got vampires fighting against werewolves. Now, we always look at what they're fighting about, right? But we never thought about what they have in common. What do werewolves and vampires have in common? Too late. The moon. A werewolf, you turn to a werewolf at a full moon. If a vampire is injured, in order to regain health, they have to lay out in the moon. Hence Twilight. They worship the moon. Matter of fact, remember we talked about that Mesopotamian civilization? Ancient Mesopotamia? What did they call it? Now remember, Mesopotamia means in between two rivers. So that was between the Tigris and Euphrates. Remember, we said that is modern day Iraq, Iran, and Kuwait. Okay, but then the Levant is Israel, Palestine. Okay, that's Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan. That's called the what? Fertile Crescent. Once again, a reference to the moon. Their civilization worships the moon. Oh, you want more? And so now that we know that the English are Germans, what did the Germans do in the 1960s? Because let's stop calling them Englishmen. What did a German tribe do in the 1960s? They went to the moon and put their flag down on a dusty rock when we know that it's a light. Because that's even what is told in the book of Genesis. They said the two luminaries, one would rule the day and one would rule the night. But when the so-called European got to the moon, what did he do? He put a flag on something dusty, a dusty rock. But he was showing you the symbolism because he ain't going to go back to the moon now. He'd rather go way past the moon and go to Mars. He don't even want to go to the moon no more. But we're showing you that, look, what did we establish? We established who these individuals were. They were going through calling themselves different names because remember, even Istanbul is just another name for Constantinople. You got to remember, Haran, which is the second city that worshiped the moon god, right? Haran, modern day Haran is in Turkey. Okay? And then also, is it just by chance that a moon god by the same name of Sin, S-I-N, was celebrated in Saudi Arabia? The same people, the same Arabs who worship, prophets who what? Go about their energy being brought through moon phases. Let's take this to another level too. There is a university by the name of Göttingen University. It's in Low Saxon, which is in Germany. Now they're notorious for two very racist things, and then this is what even Europeans say. Okay, they came up with race classification. They're the ones who came up with this idea of Caucasian, white, Ethiopian, black. That was their classification. Then they also came up with a classification for race in the Bible. Shemitic, Japhetic, Hamitic. That sound familiar? Those are Noah's sons. Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? Okay, so what you have to understand is Semitic, we know is what? In the Afro-Asiatic family. And they call themselves German Jews. Now think about this. The so-called Jews would not allow you to make any changes to their documents. We know this for a fact because when William Tyndale tried to translate, when he translated the English Bible from Hebrew, what happened? In the Latin Vulgate, what happened? They burned him alive. Then they hung him. You have to have authority. So think about this. This university in Germany gets the authority to classify races and races what races were attached to Noah's sons. They had the right to do that. You think that, if they wasn't the so-called Jews, the Germans acting like the so-called Jews, that they would have the authority to make that decision? You see, so when you go down history, what do we talk about? We said that they had the Septuagint, then they left the Septuagint. They didn't want that anymore because between the 7th and 10th centuries, you have something called the Masoretic text. These Masoret Jews, right? They decided that, look, we want an authoritative version of the rabbinical text. Because they wanted to go back to Hebrew. So they go back and they claim that, we're going to go back and translate this back from the original Hebrew. Now, mind you, there's nothing older than the pyramid text. And they say that Hebrew is based out of, the pyramid text. So, but the thing is, this is the difference. They want to go and rewrite it the way that they want to rewrite it because they want to have something different. Because what you don't understand is that, look, we took a look at those mountains. This is why this is significant. Because the so-called Jews believe that Mount Tabor and Mount Carmel, along with Mount Sinai, will merge together as 3 mountains, and the Messiah will build his throne on those 3 mountains. Did you learn that in church? And why is it that you can't argue against it as a Christian? Because the so-called Jews are central to your philosophy. What you gonna do? You gonna argue with them? You see what I'm saying? And why are these people so obsessed with mountains? Why did Muhammad go to a mountain? Okay? Why did Moses march up a mountain? All right? Why was Zeus on top of a mountain? Mount Olympus. What's up with all these mountains? Because most mountains are volcanoes. Okay? And some mountains are not. Some mountains are made from tectonic plates, right? Through convergence and divergence of tectonic plates. But from what they tell us, right? But what we have to understand is that these mountains, these volcanoes, now remind you also, volcano is Roman for Vulcan, the god of fire. But let's not go there. Fact of the matter is these volcanoes spew out gems. All right? Sometimes diamonds and all this different stuff. Because what you have to learn, and I'm going to tie all this together. What you have to learn is you don't know why they're out in the sand. See, black people sit up there and be like, why do these people want to be running around in the sand like nomads and stuff? What is out there in the sand? Volcanoes. If you notice, in the southeast, the eastern section of the Sahara Desert is called the Bayuda Desert. The Bayuda Desert also has volcanic fields. Okay? And then it's located at 18 degrees north, 33 degrees east by chance. But the volcanic fields, these cones split out these, and oftentimes split out what's called pyroclastic. Pyro means hot, clastic just means rocks, or these fire rocks. And sometimes it's spitting out these diamonds and stuff like that. So you got to understand that there's mining that goes on, these gems that go on, right? Because let's take a look back at the periodic table of elements. We're going to take a look back at because this is finna get deep. I'm going to end this on something deep. Something super deep. All right, let me go back to the periodic table. Let me find it. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you, remember, and I'm going to go over this, plenty other times. But remember, like I said, when you have carbon just bonding with itself, remember, it makes a diamond, okay? When you have silica and oxygen combining together, it makes a quartz. You see what I'm saying? So you get what I'm saying. When you have aluminum and oxygen combining together, you make rubies and sapphires, okay? Now, you might not even know what you're looking at. Understand this too. Understand something about the European right quick. Think of what we're looking at. We're looking at the periodic table of elements. Remember I talked about everything is hidden in plain sight? Remember, I'm about to just blow your mind right quick. Now, we said that carbon only, bonds in crystalline form, in cubes, right? What are these? Look like cubes, don't they? Now, understand this. The so-called Europeans said that carbon is the king of elements. I don't know if you've ever played chess before, but is the king the same size as the pawn? Remember, the European associates size with importance. That's why he makes the United States the same size as Africa on his globes, when we know that the United States can fit 4 times into Africa. But I digress. Point is, if this is the king of elements, like we said before, why isn't this bigger? If this is the reason why only life could exist, why is it the same size as these other elements? Because he knows if you find out, if he isolates it and you just looking at it, and you won't ask that question, why is carbon so big? And then you already know that you're made out of carbon, so he would have some splaining to do. Okay? But he's not going to do that because, see, you believe in this man. You believe that he has reached the God complex. Let me show you how he wants to convince you that he's been where he's been. And I'm going to just go through a couple of things. Like I said, I'm going to bring it full circle because this might be 5, 6, 7 segments. All this stuff is so deep. I hope y'all are enjoying this information as we go along. But, like I said, I'm going to put it all together. Trust me. I hope that none of you guys are lost at this time. Hope y'all can throw some diamonds down in that comment section because a lot of this stuff is fire, right? So we're going to show you something. We're going to show you. We're gonna go to a receipt to show you why you have this God complex. Now, first, I'm gonna read something to you. Now, this is from NASA. That's from NASA. NASA's saying this. Okay. So I asked a question. What would happen if Earth stopped spinning? It says if the Earth stopped spinning suddenly, the atmosphere would still be in motion with the Earth's original 1,100 mile per hour rotation speed at the equator. This means rocks, topsoil, trees, buildings, your pet dog, and so on will be swept away into the atmosphere. Pretty dramatic. Okay, let's look at a video that NASA just posted probably about 2 or 3 days ago. Now, 1976 Copyright Act, Section 107. This is meant, obviously, for, commentary and analysis. And so, please don't judge me. Now, look at this. I'll let you watch it. 38-second video. He's out in space. Now, notice, he's moving. The Earth isn't moving, though. It's spinning at 1,100 miles on its axis. But he's moving. The Earth isn't. I want you to notice that because every time you watch a movie from here on out, watch how the Earth is never spinning. It's always hidden in plain sight. And notice as well as too, where's his satellites? If you ever watched that cartoon movie, remember in his programming, he made a movie called Wall-E. And Wall-E, when he left Earth, he looked back and he saw all the satellites covering Earth. He couldn't even see the Earth. Do you see that? You see that right now? You see so many satellites that you can't see the Earth? Nah, I doubt it. I doubt it. And we're going to let this play until it ends. Because that's 38 seconds. And I'm going to show you why I played it for 38 seconds, almost 40 seconds. We ain't even got to play it. I'm going to just tell you that it was 40 seconds. Trust me. It was 40 seconds. Now, the Earth spins at 1,000 miles an hour, say that its equator. And it's also traveling, they say, what, 66, 67,000 miles around the sun? Now, dig this. That means that's 30 kilometers or 18 miles per second. So this video was 40 seconds long. So 40 times 18, I believe, is what, 720? So you telling me in that video, the Earth travels 720 miles? Did it look like to you that the Earth travels 720 miles to you? Okay, hold on. Let me see something. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. I'm going to dispel another myth. I'm going to just show you how he lies so much all the time. How many times when you see his movies, he always talking about, oh, he shows you satellites, especially when he's doing the Jason Bourne movies and, you know, with the Will Smith movie that was popular that came out. I think it was, you know, I can't recall the name of the movie. But, you know, any movie that has anything to do with anything that has technology, he's always talking about satellites. Oh, satellites, just triangulating the position, blah, 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 blah. No, he's not. He doesn't have satellites up there because this is a dome. I'm about to bring the receipts because you got the God complex in this European. Okay, what is this? This is Newsweek, right? You see that headline? What does that headline say? Okay, I'm going to read it. Undersea cables transport 99% of international data. Let's read. Let's read. In our wireless satellite broadcasted world, it's easy to forget that most of our electronic communications still run through wires. This includes the vast majority of international calls, text messages, and internet transmissions, which must be ferried through cables that stretch across continents at the bottom of oceans. This man ain't got no satellites. 99%. If this man, look, you telling me he's saying that 1% that he uses for communication and sitting up there clogging up all the earth and stuff, you've given him the God complex. You've given him the God complex. And we're going to snatch all of that out. Because like I said before, what you have to understand is that, you know, once you find out who he is and what he's here for, then you know exactly how to combat this energy by taking up the responsibility to become a higher being yourself, right? Because we already understand exactly who and what he is. You see, he's celebrating the moon god. That's why he put his stake on the moon. That's why they all, you know, associate themselves with the moon. And we got to understand, like they said, the Arabs claim that they come from the Ishmael, but the Ishmaelites, but obviously symbolically enough, you look at it through Hagar, you know, they say that they come through our line. But what they're telling us is their stories mixed with their little, you know, their gods, but, you know, they're giving us these little bits and pieces and stuff that gets us attracted to the information. But we know that when we look at it, Most High would have given us nature. We're becoming advanced civilization. That's what we can only do that with advanced technology. That's like I said, that's why we became so infatuated with what we seen in the Black Panther movie. And then this is the, you know, what we see would have been apparent in those ancient civilizations like they call Lemuria and the Atlanteans, right? The civilizations that these so-called theosophists had wrote about, like H.P. Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and the German mystic by the name of Rudolf Steiner. See, these individuals had known, but they didn't want to give it up and want to tell us because we already knew exactly what was going on. So we're going to go back to some receipts and stuff, and I want to show you exactly what I'm talking about, that when I say that, you know, our trees are important, right? And he doesn't want us to see that and understand that. This right here, I don't know if you understand and know what that is. That's called the Ring of Fire. All right, we're active volcano sites and stuff like that. In the last 12,000 years, about 90% of the most major earthquakes have happened in this area. Now, just so happens in this area too as well are the biggest trees you've ever seen in your damn life. Sequoias, redwoods, and stuff like that. Remember what we said, the trees take up a carbon dioxide, carbon. They store carbon. They store carbon-14. That's electrical, that's radiated energy. That's why sometimes, especially if you're familiar with gardening, you know, the soil can be hot. You see what I'm saying? This is how these trees survive throughout the winter. Because you got to think about, remember what was in plain sight? Let's double back on something that we said. Remember in that article that we read about NASA with the ask, oh, what color, how are trees green? Trees are not green, their leaves are green. Trees are brown. You know that when the leaves fall, what color trees are. That's straight carbon. That carbon, that energy is how they stay warm in the winter. We know it because we use sugar to stay warm to build energy. When you're hungry and when you need to get warm, someone tells you to eat something so that you can warm up, because burning that sugar will create energy. Hence, what do you get from trees a lot of time? You ever heard of maple syrup? Sugar straight out of trees. That fuel is inside them. They can use that for heat energy. That's how they survive the winter. So when we take a look at these trees, the sequoias and stuff, notice how that's where all those fires are coming from. Notice that they were hanging on these trees. Notice that that's who they were going to war with. Remember the movie Avatar? That's where they went to war with the tree. Right? The tree was made holy by Iwa, their god. And the only way that Jake could come into their existence if it was approved by the power of the tree of souls or the tree of life. These trees are causing this heat energy, not no Earth's core. They still haven't seen the Earth's core. They got articles in 2018. We finally seen the Earth's core. Stop letting them lie to you. Just like in 2017, 18, it's we finally might be able to see DNA. It doesn't exist, melanated gods and goddesses. These trees are your close beings that you need to be interacting with, as well as you melanated beings. Look, they made movies about it. And like I said, this area is where the largest trees grow. All around this area. Look it up for yourself. I need you to do that research on your own because I got plenty of other information to go over. But that's what I need you to understand, is that these trees bring about life. And then think about this. This is what's so cold. If trees soak up the carbon and oceans soak up the carbon and radiation, oceans are another reservoir for carbon-14 and radiation. Now, if they soak up that radiation, if the so-called European was concerned about global warming, why are you cutting down your trees? Why are you burning your trees? Why are you contaminating your oceans? The two very most powerful reservoirs that will allow you to soak up the carbon. Remember, he talks about the carbon footprint. It's getting too hot. Shut up. All right? So, look, now I told you, he did movies about it. Remember the movie by M. Night Shyamalan? We'd be like, man, that movie was stupid. It was called The Happening. All right, I think that's what it was called, where the trees, began to release a neurotoxin, caused people to start committing suicide and stuff. And people was like, man, that movie was stupid. They don't make these movies to entertain you. They make the movies because the Most High is forcing them to tell you the truth, because the world is ruled by signs and symbols. Now, this is the thing that you have to understand. Like I said before, you have to understand that these beings, they can see. Trees can see you. Matter of fact, if you ever grown plants, you understand that they will come towards the light. This because they don't have eyes, they can still see, and they can see you. Let's bring out the receipts, because you think I'm saying, like I said, I got to bring out the receipts. I got to bring out the receipts. Okay. Hold on one second. Because this is going to be powerful. All right. Almost got it. Come on, where'd you go? Okay, here it is. I'm sorry for the delay. This article, I'm gonna show you it. You see it, so you can take a snapshot of it. Show you the headline. Trees can talk, see, and even fight. The hills are indeed alive. Groundbreaking research into trees and plants is revealing that they are much more complex and intelligent than we originally thought. That's a damn lie. Come on, we've been already shattering that shit. You know how they love to lie. Trees and plants can talk to each other, see, share food, and even go to war. Let's read it. We're going to just isolate, because like I said, take a look at the article. You can read much of it, but I'm just trying to make my case, because I know I say stuff that sound crazy, so I got to have him validated. There's also the curious case of Boquilla trifoliolata, a plant that is able to change its colors in leaves so it looks like the plants around it. It does this for protection. Of course, it needs to see the plants around it in order to know what its leaves should look like to blend in. This is Facts Over Feelings, man. Get ready for segment 5, man.